At exactly midnight, the thing knocking on my door sounded exactly like my dead brother, but he had been buried 3 days ago. Daniel Harper never liked silence. But the silence in Ravenwood, Ohio was different. It felt alive. Daniel had moved back into his childhood home after his younger brother Michael died in a terrible car accident on Cedar Hill Road. The funeral had happened only 3 days ago. The house still smelled like old flowers and candle smoke. That night, the town was covered in a cold fog. Daniel sat alone in the living room, staring at the old family clock hanging on the wall. Tick, tick, tick. Each second sounded louder than the last. Outside, the wind moved slowly through the tall trees around the house. Their shadows crawled across the walls like dark fingers. Daniel rubbed his tired eyes. Grief had made sleeping impossible. Then suddenly, knock. Daniel froze. The sound came from the front door. He looked at the clock. 12 a.m. Exactly midnight. Another knock came. Knock. Slow. Heavy. Daniel stood up slowly. His heart began beating faster. Nobody visited this house at midnight, and the nearest neighbor lived almost a mile away. He walked toward the door carefully. The wooden floor creaked under his feet. Then he heard something that made his blood turn cold. A voice. Soft. Weak. From outside the door. Daniel. Daniel stopped breathing. The voice continued. Daniel, open the door. Daniel's hands began shaking. Because he knew that voice. He had heard it his whole life. It was Michael's voice. But that was impossible. Michael was dead. Daniel himself had watched them lower the coffin into the grave. Cold sweat rolled down his neck. Outside the door, the voice spoke again. Daniel, it's me. Silence filled the house. Then the doorknob slowly moved. Daniel stepped back in horror. The door was locked, but something outside was trying to open it. The knob twisted again. Slowly. Creak. Then the voice whispered one more sentence. A sentence that made Daniel feel like his heart had stopped. Why did you bury me while I was still breathing? Daniel stumbled backward. His mind refused to accept what he had just heard. That's not real, he whispered. It can't be. But the knocking returned. Knock. Knock. This time louder. More desperate. Daniel, please. Michael's voice sounded weaker now, like someone trapped underground. Daniel covered his ears. No, no, no. But the voice kept coming. Daniel, it's cold. The wind outside suddenly became stronger. The trees scratched against the house walls. The old porch light flickered. On. Off. On. Off. Daniel slowly walked toward the small window beside the door. His heart pounded so hard it felt painful. He told himself it was just grief. Just imagination. Nothing more. But something inside him forced him to look outside. Slowly, he moved the curtain aside and looked through the glass. At first he saw nothing. Only fog. Thick white fog covering the yard. Then something moved inside the fog. A dark shape, standing on the porch. Daniel's breath stopped. The shape slowly stepped closer to the light. And Daniel saw a man. A man covered in dirt. His clothes were torn. Mud dripped from his hands. And his face. Daniel's stomach twisted in terror. It was Michael. But something was terribly wrong. His skin looked pale gray. His eyes were wide open. And his lips were cracked like dry soil. Then Michael raised one shaking hand and slowly pointed toward the ground, toward the cemetery hill far behind the house. Then he spoke again, but this time his voice sounded deeper. Wrong. Like two voices speaking together. Daniel. The porch light flickered again, and when it turned back on, Michael was suddenly standing much closer to the door. Too close. His face pressed against the glass now, dirt sliding down the window, and his mouth slowly opened, revealing dark soil packed between his teeth. Then he whispered something that Daniel would never forget. Something followed me out of the grave. Daniel stepped back so fast he almost fell. Michael's face was still pressed against the glass. His breath left a dirty fog on the window. But that was impossible. Michael had been buried in Ravenwood Cemetery. Daniel himself had watched the coffin go down into the ground. His hands started shaking. Outside, Michael slowly raised his hand again. He knocked once more. Knock. But this time, the knock sounded wrong. Too strong. Too heavy. As if something much bigger was hitting the door. Daniel, let me in. The voice was still Michael's. But something deeper was hidden inside it. Something dark. Daniel's eyes moved down slowly. He noticed something disturbing. Michael's fingers were bleeding. The nails were broken. Dirt and pieces of wood were stuck under them. It looked like someone had been digging through a coffin. Daniel's stomach twisted. Michael, he whispered. For a moment, Michael stopped moving. His head tilted slowly to one side, like a puppet with loose strings. Then his lips stretched into a strange smile. Too wide, too unnatural. And then the porch light went out. Darkness. The entire porch disappeared into black shadow. Daniel rushed to the window again. But Michael was gone. Completely gone. Only the fog remained. Daniel's chest rose and fell quickly. Maybe he had imagined everything. Maybe grief had broken his mind. But then, thud, a heavy sound came from upstairs. Daniel froze. Slowly, another sound followed. Footsteps. From the hallway above. Daniel's eyes widened. No, that's not possible. He lived alone. No one else had a key. But the footsteps continued. Step, step, step. Slow. Dragging. Like someone walking with stiff legs. Then something even worse happened. From upstairs, a familiar voice called his name again. But this time it didn't come from outside. It came from inside the house. Daniel. Daniel's heart pounded violently in his chest. The voice upstairs sounded exactly like Michael. But Daniel knew one terrifying truth. He had never opened the door. So how did Michael get inside? The hallway above creaked again. Step, step. Dust slowly fell from the ceiling. Daniel's mind screamed at him to run. But his legs refused to move. Another sound came from the staircase. A dragging noise. Like something being pulled across wood. Daniel slowly turned toward the stairs. The darkness there felt thick. Heavy. Then something appeared at the top step. A hand. Pale. Covered in dirt. The fingers slowly gripped the railing. Then Michael's head appeared. But his movements were wrong. His neck bent strangely. His shoulders twitched. And his eyes. His eyes were completely black. No white. No color. Just darkness. Michael's mouth slowly opened. And a cold whisper came out. Daniel, it found the way. Daniel's voice shook. Michael, what found the way? Michael's head suddenly snapped sideways. As if someone behind him had grabbed it. His body jerked violently. And then he spoke again. But this time the voice was not Michael's. It was deeper. Wet. Rotting. Not Michael. A long silence filled the house. Then the thing on the stairs smiled. Its jaw stretched wider than humanly possible. And Daniel realized something horrifying. Michael was not standing on his own. Something tall, something dark, was standing behind him in the shadows, holding him upright like a puppet. And then the voice whispered again. Daniel, we came home with him. A cold wind moved through the house. The lights flickered, and the creature behind Michael slowly began stepping forward, dragging the dead body with it. If you're still listening, what happened next was even worse. Daniel could not breathe. The thing behind Michael slowly stepped into the weak light of the staircase. At first, Daniel thought it was just a shadow. But shadows do not breathe. Shadows do not move like that. The creature was tall. Too tall for the hallway ceiling. Its body bent unnaturally just to fit inside the house. Long black arms wrapped around Michael's dead body like a puppeteer controlling a doll. Michael's feet dragged slowly on the wooden stairs. Step. Drag. Step. Drag. The smell reached Daniel first. A horrible smell of wet soil, rot, and something older than death. Daniel covered his mouth. Michael, he whispered. Michael's head lifted slowly. But Daniel realized something terrifying. Michael was not alive. His eyes were empty. His mouth hung open. His body moved only when the creature moved its long fingers. The creature leaned forward. Its face slowly entered the weak yellow light. Daniel's mind broke at what he saw. It had no real face, only stretched gray skin. And beneath that skin, a shapes moved, as if many faces were trapped inside it. Whispering, crying, screaming. Suddenly, all the whispers spoke together. 100 voices inside one throat. We were buried here first. Daniel stumbled backward. What are you? The creature tilted its head. Its long fingers tightened around Michael's shoulders. Then it answered, we live under the graves. Daniel's blood froze. Ravenwood Cemetery had been built over very old land. Land no one talked about. Old newspaper articles once mentioned something strange about the place. But Daniel never believed the stories. Until now. The creature slowly raised Michael's hand, forcing him to point at Daniel. When he died, we used his body to come out. Daniel felt tears in his eyes. So Michael is gone. The creature leaned closer. Its hollow face inches from Michael's ear. Then it whispered the cruel truth. Oh, he is still here. Michael's mouth suddenly opened, and a weak, broken voice came out. Daniel, help me. Tears ran down Daniel's face, because he realized something horrifying. Michael was trapped inside his own dead body, watching everything, feeling everything, but unable to move. The creature began dragging Michael closer. "We need another body." Daniel turned and ran. His mind screamed only one thing: escape. He ran toward the back door of the house. Behind him, he heard the horrible sound again. Step, drag, step, drag. Michael's body being pulled across the floor. The creature was following him. Daniel reached the kitchen. His hands shook as he grabbed the door handle. But before he could open it, a voice whispered behind his ear. Too late. Cold fingers wrapped around his shoulder. Daniel screamed. The creature had moved impossibly fast. Michael's body stood only inches away from him now. His eyes stared at Daniel with silent pain. The creature's long arm slowly reached forward and placed its hand on Daniel's chest. Daniel felt something freezing enter his body, like icy worms crawling through his veins. He collapsed to the floor, his vision blurred. The last thing he saw was Michael's face crying silently. The creature leaned closer. Its horrible whisper filled the kitchen. This town needed new graves. The lights went out. The house fell silent. 3 days later, police arrived at the Harper house. Neighbors had reported strange noises at night. When officers entered the house, they found something disturbing. The front door was open. The house smelled like fresh dirt, but no one was inside. Daniel Harper had disappeared, just like his brother. Later that evening, something even worse happened. At Ravenwood Cemetery, a gravedigger reported 2 new graves, freshly dug, but no one had ordered them. Police checked the gravestones. The first grave read, Michael Harper. The second grave read, Daniel Harper. But the gravedigger said something strange. When he arrived that morning, he could swear he heard faint knocking coming from underground. And sometimes, very late at night, people in Ravenwood say they hear 2 voices under the soil. One voice begging for help, and another voice whispering something darker. More bodies will come. If you enjoyed this horror story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon for more terrifying stories.